Hi there, welcome back. This is Caycee and I am here recording another video. It is the second in a series entitled Do It Yourself Iridology. And in the first video, we discussed the constitution and genetic heritage as seen in the iris. As well, we talked about true iris color. So feel free to check that out. Constitution is something that I address in all of my iris readings, so I will be briefly discussing the constitution of the iris that I will be showing you today. So we'll do a pretty quick recap on that, but I will post the link to that video. As well, I'm going to include a link to a video on how to take your iris photos. So if you're just getting into this now, the first thing you're going to be doing is getting a good picture of your irises, and then you're going to be looking at constitution, and then you're going to go right into the mapping of the iris, which is what we're going to be covering today. Alright, so the iris map. It looks a little bit complicated, intimidating. It can be a bit overwhelming when you're first looking at any kind of iridology chart. One thing I would like you to keep in mind, however, is that the iris is actually mapped according to the nervous system. So as the iris itself is an extension of the brain, the iris is showing the health of the entire body, as the nervous system is giving that information through the optic nerve and reflecting it in the eye. So what you're going to notice is that you're going to find the anatomy and physiology reflected quite perfectly in the iris. So for example, you have at the top of the iris the brain and the head. And then at the very bottom of the iris, you're going to have the thigh, knee, foot, groin, kidney, adrenal gland, and so forth. Most things in the eye, as in the body, are bilateral. So we have two lungs. You're going to see the lungs reflected in each the right and left eye. Again, we have two arms, two hands, two legs. So all of those things you're going to see in both eyes. There are a few features, such as the liver. So here is the liver. This must be a right eye chart. So you're not going to see the heart reflected in the right eye, but you will see the liver and the gallbladder. Okay, so I'm going to show you a few charts. I'm going to show you the two charts that I was given in my training with Dr. Morse, and then we're going to take a look at an iris, and I will discuss what I see in that iris. All right, so let's get started. Okay, so this first chart is a really excellent visual representation of how the anatomy and physiology of the body is laid out in the iris. So again, we have up at the top of the iris, we have the whole entire head and brain area. We have the occipital lobe, we have the frontal lobe, and then we get into the face, the jaw, the eye is reflected in the iris. We have the upper cervical spine, the ear, and then this is the left eye representation. So this is the heart right in here. We also have the lungs. So if you're not aware, we have our lungs they differ slightly. So because the heart is on the left side of the body, there are actually only two lobes. Two lung lobes on the left side, and then on the right side you can see that there are three lobes, and the heart is not reflected. Okay, and then we have the chest and the ribs. We have the arm over here on the left iris, and then on the right we have the arm right here. And then still on the right side, this is the liver area, and then the gallbladder just directly above that. This is the pancreas. You're not going to see the pancreas in the left iris. And we will always find, so we have the thigh, knee, and foot right at the 6 o'clock line. And then medial to that, so medial meaning toward the midline of the body. In the irises, you can think of it as towards the nose. So always medial to the thigh, knee, foot, you're going to see the kidney and adrenal on each side. So here it is on the right, kidney, and then the adrenal gland right on top of that. And then on the left, same thing over here. Okay, so I like to keep this chart along with my Dr. Jensen chart right on hand when I'm doing readings. I also use my computer software, but I love this chart because it does give you such an excellent visual representation. Let's see what else I can show you guys on this chart. So the stomach is directly surrounding the pupil. This is the innermost area you're going to see in the iris, and then the small and large intestines are going to be directly outside of that. It's the same in both eyes, but there are variations on the small and large intestines. But the stomach itself is in both eyes seen directly surrounding the pupil area. Okay, and one more thing. The periphery of the iris is going to show you where the lymphatic system, for the most part, you can see the lymphatic system in different areas of the body and certain lymphatic glands and tissues, but mainly it's represented in the periphery of the iris and as well as the circulatory system. So all along the outside of the eye, and that's why when you hear things like skin ring or lymphatic tophi, you're generally going to see, always the skin ring you'll see on the very outside of the iris. That's where the skin is represented, and then inside of that area you may see a lymphatic rosary. And we'll get to all this. This is meant to be a brief overview of the iris chart. And then I'm going to get into all of the different systems and any related pathologies in future videos. Okay, so I'm going to show you the next chart, which is the classic Bernard Jensen chart. Bernard Jensen, if you're not familiar, is considered the father of iridology in the West. And my teacher, Dr. Morse, spent many years studying with Dr. Jensen. So this is, like I said, I received both of these charts in my training and I use them pretty much exclusively. Okay, so this gives you, it's the same layout. You know, you have the head and the brain up at the top of the iris. You have the thigh, knee, foot at the bottom. Again, you have the kidney and adrenal gland medial to the thigh, knee, foot. But this shows you in words rather than pictures. So this chart does get a little bit more specific in that way. And another difference in this chart is that Bernard Jensen mapped out these different sections of the brain, and he calls those brain flares. So we have different sections that are given different qualities and attributes based on the part of the brain that these sections are placed in. And again, we're going to do a whole video on the brain because it's actually pretty deep. But just know that this whole entire area from 11 to 1 o'clock is the brain area, and that Bernard Jensen does attribute different sections of the brain, and he refers to those as brain flares. He also does, like you can see the pituitary gland right here and the pineal gland right here. So he does include those two glands. And then he also, like animation life is the very center of the brain centers, and that has its own qualities. Okay, so let's see what else we see. We have the thyroid in both eyes. So this would be the thyroid on the left side, and then thyroid on the right side. So when you, let's look at the thyroid on this, in this photo. This kind of gives you an idea of the concept that this is sort of the front of the chest and heart area, and this is somewhat considered the back over here. And you can keep that in mind as you see that this person's, or this drawing's face is faced in this direction. So this would be the front of the body. So the thyroid is going to be right in here on both irises. Okay, so thyroid, and then parathyroid is found deeper into the iris, closer to the stomach and bowels area, closer to the pupil. All right, what else do we see? So this chart shows the more specific delineation of where the small intestines and the large intestines, or the colon itself, is in each eye. And it also shows how the colon empties out. It finishes with the sigmoid colon, and then it goes into the rectum. So that is where food stuff or waste is leaving through the body. So that might be of interest when you're looking at your stomach and bowel area. And again, that's going to be a whole video in and of itself. So if you have anything going on in the stomach and bowels, I will be doing an entire video dedicated to that, and any kind of, not just the anatomy and the function of the stomach and bowels, but any kind of related pathologies or discomfort going on in those areas. All right, so the idea is that you get your photo and you take a quick look at your constitution, and then you obtain an iris chart or two or more. I do have both of these charts up on my website. I have them in PDF format, so you're able to download them. And you can just look online and see what other iris charts call to you. But that's the idea, is that you get your photos and you get your iris charts, and then you just start comparing, you know, the anatomy of the chart to what you see in your own iris. Okay, so we're going to take a look at an actual iris. And we have this little mini chart here to give us just some small frame of reference as we go along and mark up this iris. So, like I said, first thing that I like to look at is the constitution itself. And you can see that these fibers, so all of these white lines, are trabecula or iris fibers. They're pretty closely woven together. There aren't a lot of separations, and they're fairly straight. So I would say this person actually has a pretty strong constitution, physically speaking. So with a strong constitution, physically speaking, like I mentioned in the constitution video, people that have extremely strong constitutions are absolutely blessed, no doubt. They also have or may have challenges with knowing when to take rest and listening to their body, because they are able to push through life and complete any tasks really set before them. So that's just a quick overview of constitution, and in this iris, I would say this is a strong constitution, very strong constitution. Now, what are you looking for? So you can see, oh, well, here's my head and there's my brain area, but what does that mean? So we're going to take a look at different markings that you're going to see in the iris and how that relates to the iridology charts. let's start in the center. So here we have the pupil, and you can see from the chart, and like I mentioned, the stomach is directly surrounding the pupil. So this area, and you can see a little bit of shading. It's not the best drawing, but you can see like in this area, there's a bit of a different color. And that would delineate the stomach itself from the intestines, which are directly outside of that area. Okay? So, see the shading, and depending on the color of the shading, if it's in a bright white state, you could have acidity or inflammation in the stomach. If it gets darker into the grays, you could be looking at more of a hypo-functioning stomach. You can be getting more into, so the brighter colors would be more acute, and then after that you would go into the subacute or chronic. This doesn't look like anything to be alarmed about for this person in terms of the stomach shading. It's a nice picture because it does show you the difference between the stomach and then the bowel wall. Okay, so before I get into the bowel wall though, what you can see and what you'll want to be looking for in your eyes is on the pupillary margin. So the pupillary margin is right in there. So it's basically it's the edge, the outside of the pupil itself. You can see on this margin that it is a little bit discolored, it's dark, a little bit of unevenness in here. And this is indicating that this person has some issues with absorption, could even have some inflammation in the stomach lining. And if it has progressed into the more acute subacute or chronic stages, they could even be experiencing gastritis, which is the inflammation of the stomach lining itself. So that would be an absorption ring. It's also referred to as a malabsorption ring. So like I said, it's indicating challenges with nutrient absorption. So that is the pupillary margin. And then this line here is showing you the stomach. And then outside of the stomach, we have the bowel wall. This is also referred to as the autonomic nerve wreath. And that's just a delineation of the bowels. And this person, you can see by how the drawing is kind of going all over the place, there is some spasticity, possibly diverticuli, possibly some strictures within the bowel wall. Overall, though, not an entirely unhealthy digestive system. A few issues, but nothing to be super alarmed about. Sometimes what you'll see in the digestive system are a number of radii solaris. And let me see if I can get rid of a few of these lines so I can show you what a radii solaris would look like. So this person has hints of radii solaris. So radii solaris are these basically separations in the iris fibers, and they're usually very narrow. They look like troughs in the trabecula. And so this one is actually definitely a radii solaris. This one is, although it's not beginning right at the stomach, it's beginning somewhere midway point. And then this one certainly does look like a radii solaris, although It's fairly wide, and I might even call that a crypt. So they're all different kinds of expressions for when the trabecula are separated. Lacuna, crypts, radii solaris. And whenever you see a separation in the iris fibers, usually you'll see a darkness underneath that. And that is indicating that there is some compromise in that area. So for this person, what you would do, you can see that there's a bit of darkness right here in the center. Basically, you know, the 12 o'clock line. And Bernard Jensen's chart would tell me that that is the animation life center. And that center is all about joy, energy, how much energy you're able to receive, and how well you are able to complete your tasks. So if this center has a dark line, and this isn't an extremely dark line, it gets a lot darker. It could even be black. There may be challenges with that person's energy level. Okay, and then this one, though, is a little bit more standing out to me. So this would be more like in the 5 senses area. So I'm going to outline this. And so that would indicate that this person could be having challenges with the 5 senses area, which the 5 senses area, most of the brain centers are actually, they go deep. The 5 senses area is actually kind of simple. It is what it sounds like. It is related to your 5 senses. So if I were doing a reading, I would definitely bring both of these areas to that person's attention. Now, back to the concept of radii solaris. You can see that there's a connection in this dark area to this a little bit of darkness right in here, and that's coming directly from the stomach. So what radii solaris show you is that the toxins, and this is known in the natural healing world, and it has been for hundreds of years, probably thousands of years, is that the stomach is directly related to the entire body. The health and well-being of the entire body really does depend on a healthy stomach and digestive system. And it's interesting to see that in the pupil, because a lot of times you see areas that look like they are exhibiting weakness or compromise, and these areas, like this one right in here is another one, a lot of times they come directly from the stomach and bowels. So when you see that, you're going to know that you need to clean up your stomach and bowels, and that would be one of the first priorities. And it also just gives you a visual representation of how it is true that the toxicity within our gut is related to the toxicity within our body. And a lot of times when you see the radii solaris, they are up in the brain and the head area, and they come from the transverse colon. So this area in here is where the transverse colon is represented. And if a person has a lot of radii solaris coming from this area, this person does not, that is actually referred to as a crown of thorns. Okay, so let's see what else we see. The next thing that I want to show you in this eye is this is a pretty classic, this area in here is a very classic compromised thyroid. So you can see the separation and a bit of darkness in this whole area here. So that would be thyroid, even getting into parathyroid. Parathyroid, so it's very bright. It's bright, right? A bright white yellowish. So this indicates a lot of lymphatic stagnation and inflammation. So that's what would be going on with the parathyroid. And then the thyroid itself looks like it's into more of a subacute state. And I will do a whole video on thyroid. I actually have a page on my site about that. But when you see a thyroid that has a lacuna in it, or a separation of fibers, or some other type of weakness that you can see. Generally speaking, just because it's more common to have hypothyroid, but you can always check the health of your thyroid by not only getting your hormones tested or your blood work, but getting your blood work doesn't actually show you conclusively the health of the thyroid always. A lot of times it's just going to give you your TSH, which is the thyroid stimulating hormone that the pituitary releases. So a lot of times when you think that you're getting information on the health of your thyroid, you're actually just getting information on the health of your pituitary gland, which is valuable as well. But the basal thermometer testing is the most accurate way, in my opinion, to check the health of your thyroid. So, like I said, this is classic thyroid weakness in this area in here. And as I'm drawing into the skin area, you can see that there's a bit of haziness, lightness, sort of wearing down on the periphery of the iris, for the most part surrounding the entire eye. And that is a classic skin ring. So this person does have the skin ring. As well, when you see these little clouds, these white, usually they're white, these are turning from white into yellow. These are lymphatic tophi, and when you see them surround the entire periphery of the iris, which you pretty much can guess that they do encircle the whole iris, that would be termed a lymphatic rosary. And when they're white, bright white, they're in the acute or beginning stages of lymphatic congestion. They will move, they will progress, and they will change color. And this sort of yellowish, it would be the next state of imbalance in the lymphatic system. And this just shows that there's a lot of congestion overall in the lymphatic system. And it's interesting too, because a lot of times you'll see the lymphatic rosary closer to the periphery, but these are actually pushed in. They've advanced into deeper areas of the body. So I would say that would be something that this person would be looking at definitely right away. Okay, now we also have, this is a classic lacuna right here. Here's another one. A lacuna is a closed off, I mean, you can have open-ended lacuna or closed lacuna, but this is a classic closed lacuna. And that is showing us that the body has isolated this area, and that this area is not receiving circulation, as well it is not receiving the lymphatic fluid in order to remove waste from the cells. So the body has isolated this area so as not to allow the toxicity within this area to spread to other parts of the body. And this would be, I mean, it looks somewhat like the arm and the hand, but it's also in the area of the spleen. So I would say that there's something going on in the spleen for this person. And then to the left of that, we have this little cloud discoloration. And that would be considered a deposit of inorganic substances, could be from prescription drugs. And this is just where this settled. It could also be from toxicity that this person inherited from birth. A lot of times you'll see these little psora spots or discolorations related to toxicity that someone inherited and was not able to throw off in their early childhood years. So you'll see psora spots in particular. This one looks a bit more like a drug deposit to me, but you will see different spots in areas that are related to the substance that caused this discoloration, and this is in the ovary area. So that would be something, ovary or testes. So in this case, it would be the ovary, and I would be pointing that out to this person, that there could be something going on, genetically speaking, in the ovary. I'm not sure how birth control affects, I mean, we know that it's not optimal to have to take hormones, but I'm not sure if that would show up in the iris itself. I haven't done any iris readings where it was a definitive, you know, this spot is here because of birth control, but that would be my guess. All right. What else do we see? So there's a little bit, you see this little opening right in here, and this is the 6 o'clock line, and this is the thigh, knee, foot area. So there could be some genetic weakness in the thigh, as well the knee, all the way down that leg. And this would be the left, this is the left eye, so that would be the left leg. Now, it also looks like there's some inflammation and congestion just medial to that, and just a slight separation of fibers in this kidney area. So I would be, you know, always when you're doing detoxification, you're going to be addressing the kidneys. In this case, I would recommend this person absolutely be addressing the health of their kidneys. So this would be the kidney area right in there. In the adrenal, this could be the adrenal gland, this little dark spot. So again, depending on any symptoms they may be experiencing, if they had any symptoms related to the adrenal gland, I would say absolutely you would be working on that. Okay, I think that is all I'm seeing in this eye. I hope that is a good start to helping you on your journey. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I do iris readings. I have a website that has a lot of iridology resources on it, and I'm just happy to hear from anyone on their healing path that would like any assistance. Okay, take care guys, and I'll see you next video. Bye!